Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is August 5th. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it as always. I'm joined here along with Trade the Chain's Director of Research, Nick Mancini, as well as Trade the Chain's everyday guy, Doug DeRosa. And I see he's wearing a Bacardi hat today. So
It's a Friday. It's a Friday in the summertime. Party time, Alex.
I'm gonna let everybody in on a little insider secret here. Doug is sitting in his house with no air conditioning in Florida heat.
It's not that bad. It's only 84 in here right now.
There's sweat dripping off his cheeks right now. Nick, how you doing out there? How's the West Coast going?
I mean, my AC is set to 70, so I'm doing pretty well right now. and it's a high of 84 today, so I think I might go out, hang out at the pool, and maybe FaceTime Doug while I'm out there later.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Excuse me. All right, so we obviously have some. There's obviously some big updates. It's that have happened with Voyager today that we're going to bring you after we go into the charts real quick. But it's really positive, and we brought up the timeline of events that is planned out for them as well, and we'll go over those for those people that haven't been keeping up. Although I suspect even if you have $10 on the platform, you've been keeping up. So that being said, let's just jump into the overall markets real quick. We have total market cap of $1.08 trillion, down 100,000 from yesterday's show. Bitcoin 22,870, slightly bullish neutral sentiment, 56 over 100. 1663 is Ethereum right now, neutral as well, 53 over 100. The big winners so far in the 24 hours on social, ApeCoin coming in number second. ApeCoin just keeps milking that Gucci flow right there. Ever since that ad came out, Ape has been one of the top 8 hottest cryptos on the social calendar here for quite some time. Price is up 1.39%, but social up 344%. So grabbing it. Flow, Dapper Labs, up 328% in the socials, up 5.87% in the last 24 hours on price, but flow hit 50% over the last 24 hours, that high because of Meta's announcement that it's going to be using flow for some of its Instagram NFT traffic. So that's exciting. We have Dash coming in up 4.23% in price, and VeChain rounding it out up 5.7%. So not so bad. Top price gainers, TRB 18.77%. Near. There's also the Near conference coming up this fall, I believe. Right, Nick? I keep getting
in a month. Actually, like 5 weeks. Yeah, mid September, something like that. 11th through the 14th.
Oh, okay. So Near Protocol come up 16.36%. Theta, which I know a lot of viewers have been involved in over the last year, up 14.59%. It's also number 2 on the most bullish coins for daily sentiment as well, keeping company with Flow, AVAX, OXT there. WRX being the most bearish daily sentiment coin. Look at that. BCH coming in at 4th over there, but I can spend too much time making fun of BCH, so we won't. Looking at the overall market, the last hour has been very neutral and sideways. Nick and I had some short positions in early morning, and now it's just range bound. But the thing is I don't know where we're going to go from here. Nick and I are in actually a little bit of a predicament right now. We have some after lunch scalp trades out there, and we're against each other. I am long, he is short, and the market is even right now. So
it's because we're in different time zones. He's eating lunch and longing. I'm eating breakfast and shorting. So it'll switch when it's dinner time by him and it's lunchtime by me.
I hope those Fruit Loops go your way. We'll see.
Yeah, I know. I'm eating ramen noodles. What are you talking about, bro?
ramen noodles and Starbucks.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, take us into the charts and let's see what we got before we hit the Voyager news.
So the big news today was that, and we mentioned this yesterday. We've been talking about this all week. If you read the newsletter, this was one of the marquee points of the newsletter. Alex and I have been beating this drum for a while. It is clear that the Fed likely has more work to do moving forward. And whether you want to admit it or not, today was definitely a moment where the market had no other option but to take into account the fact of what Alex and I have been saying before it was clearly priced in, is that the Fed has more work to do. So payroll was a beat. And it was actually double estimates. Usually we'll see, 50, we'll see 20, 30, 50K. It was more than double, which basically means, the Fed has two goals: inflation, unemployment. Well, you're not going to solve the inflation problem with, people with employment, unemployment going down, because that is only going to increase demand when you clearly have a supply issue. So the issue here is that the market, and this is actually a very well placed tweet, is that the market is now pricing in a 75-point basis hike in September at 63%. Now we have CPI and PPI and consumer sentiment next week, which is going to be the next big metric that I think the market is going to look for. And obviously, if that is bad, we would expect the 63% number to increase and potentially for a 100-point basis hike to come into the picture based on what recent Fed governors have said. And again, we talked about this yesterday, really need that consensus, really need more data to come in. But the fact that it's being whispered means that the possibilities have to start coming up. The market has to start figuring out if that is indeed what they should be pricing in. So right when the payroll numbers dropped, we had this giant red candle. We immediately started trading within the range that we can see here, this value range between 41, between 4150 and 4100 for the futures. But the key thing that I'm looking for is recent support, meaning the 50-day moving average on the 1 hour, the recent support, which was the 100-day moving average, is still acting as support, but we broke under it. And we also broke beneath the 50-day moving average, which has not proven to be any sort of, resistance or support, but it's a significant metric because we kind of treat the moving averages like layers. And every time you move beneath the layer, it becomes harder to achieve that layer again, if you want to call it that. So if we look at the short term, it does not look, I'm not buying any chart that looks like this. I'm telling you that right now. Typically, anytime we see a symmetrical triangle formation to any degree, it is usually a 50-50 formation, but generally you're inclined to treat it as a continuation pattern. And I would expect that, given the fact that we couldn't break above the POC, which is also, now resistance, which was previous support, is, very worrisome, I think, in the short term for anyone who is bullish on equities. And of course, we've been using equities like a weather vane for crypto. So seeing that, we can see where Bitcoin really came off the highs today, could not battle back to meet those highs again, and has only moved lower. If you think that the S&P is likely going to take a breather due to poor, positive unemployment numbers, good news is bad news, and you understand that, looking at this picture, Bitcoin couldn't even battle back above its highs from the third, certainly couldn't get back to the highs from the previous weekend. And look at what the S&P has been doing. Although it could not battle back above the highs today, it was battling highs for the past 24 hours prior to this dip. Bitcoin was not doing that. So we're seeing weakness in crypto compared to equities, meaning if we do start to see true weakness in equities, meaning that the market believes that the Fed is going to have to take more action, one has to wonder what happens to crypto in that scenario. And, I hate to be that guy, but if we're already seeing weakness, if we're already seeing a lack of a bid, and equities are potentially coming to a local top, then, there may be more bearishness in our midst. And that's a bit of how I'm treating the outlook right now. And that's why I continue to look for shorts as opposed to long trades.
Nick, as we have some sideways action, I guess you can call it, right? Prices and ETH have been kind of, and BTC are kind of going sideways. Two words come to mind: consolidation and congestion. So consolidation is a pause before we go higher. Congestion means prices are kind of stuck here and they can't push higher, and then they're going to go lower. How do we know which phase we in? Do we know it after we break out of that phase, or how can we tell we're consolidating now, or prices are just stuck at these levels and they're not going to go any higher?
So the easiest kind of signal are these what we call swing failure patterns. It can also be called deviation depending on the time frame and the range. I think this is what we're looking at here on the 29th. That would be a true swing failure pattern. What we're looking at on the 28th would be something more like deviation. So these types of patterns are basically the market tries to lift higher and create, and this, I'm probably going to botch this if you're a true technical analyst listening, because I have not memorized every single textbook, but basically the market, the price tries to push higher to find a new value area, which means a area of heavy trading for that trading period. Meaning if it lifted higher and it accepted 1760, then you'd see a bunch of battling back and forth. You'd see a heavy trading at that level, and then that level would become kind of what you're talking about now, consolidation before we move higher. Instead, it was not accepted and it was pushed back lower almost instantaneously, and that is typically a signal of a lack of an ability to push higher or lower if you're looking at the formation from the opposite angle. So we don't have any true signals, but we do have what does appear to be deviation from the current range right here. Because what happened is we broke beneath this range, we formed a new range. We tried to make it above the range, and we do look like we're potentially deviating from that range. Meaning we tried to push higher, we couldn't. Now we're back into the area. Now we need to, for this to be a truly a deviation trade, it needs to fully come back into the range, which would be beneath 1660 and be accepted there. And then I would say that we've deviated out of that range. We are now back into it, and it would be very difficult for us to continue to break higher, at least in the short term. That's how I would treat that trade. But, just to add a further perspective, a lot of people are probably going to want to yell at me, Nick, you're an idiot. Why would I short this? Well, maybe I'm an idiot too, but we're still beneath the 100-day moving average. And we have not seen any confirmation of this golden cross coming to fruition yet. So, there's multiple ways to look at this. And, there is still, a reason for the bulls to be out to play. This does actually look like a bit of a higher time frame bullish formation. But again, like I said, if we do get accepted back into the range and don't hold this level as support, then that analysis would die down as we're only halfway through the daily candle.
All right, very cool. And we will definitely keep everybody updated in the Discord channel on who wins our directional trading for the afternoon or next morning, and who folds. So we'll let you know. Definitely, it's going to be fun. I like it when these instances come up and we're on opposite sides of the coin. So, all right, next I want to take everybody to Voyager. This is the update that that's happened today. There was a court hearing yesterday. Here is a sentiment over price on Voyager, and you can see, today that when the news came out, there was a lot of sentiment. Now it's dipped sharply, but that hasn't kept Voyager from the VGX token from not moving up 6.64% to 37.9 right now. Unfortunately, a lot of it is in locked up accounts on the platform, but here we go. So Voyager today announced that it is anticipating on releasing all USD in accounts beginning on August 11th. Now, this is a big deal for everybody who has cash in their accounts. You are now going to have access to it, and it's going to be $100,000 ACH amounts a day, up to $100,000 a day. That's only 6 days away. Anybody who decided to switch over to cash when the announcement of limited withdrawals happened or happened to be sitting in cash just in general. From what I tell, this is gonna happen. This is gonna be given back to you, back into your account that's connected to Voyager. The judge approved it in yesterday's hearing with caution, but this is green lighted and ready to go. And by the way, this is also on Invest Voyager's blog that's currently up on the screen. So if you haven't taken a look at it, definitely look at it. investvoyager.com/blog. It gives everybody what they're saying about accessing your cash. Right here, you can read up to $100,000 via the app ACH in a 24-hour period for people. They also, yesterday was a unique presentation that went along, and we're going to go over that in a second as well. But again, all USD accounts. This does not include USDC, which is still being treated as a crypto. But all USD in the accounts will begin being released, anticipated on August 11th, 6 days away. One of the things that I want to hear before handing it over to Doug and Nick to comment on is, we go into crypto apps to be crypto native. We go in there to invest. We go in there to participate in the ecosystem. So my question to folks out there, and if you could drop it in the chats or the comments, I'd really love to know, is how many of you actually have USD? It doesn't matter if it's $100 or $100,000, but who actually has USD sitting in their Voyager account? When I put money into an account, or any of us up here, we generally do it to deploy it, right? Because we can keep USD anywhere. So I'd like to know definitely what the range of people, Voyager customers, are that have USD in the account that'll be getting it back. But Doug, let's start with you. What does this mean? Is this good for the world or what?
Well, I just had a friend that you know of that was looking to mint an NFT, and he said, well, where do I go to buy some Ethereum? And it was almost like a brain teaser. Like I was like stumbled, like where? And I was like, hey, do you have a PayPal account? And he's like, yeah. And so we did it through there, and it's really seamless. So the reason why I mentioned that is that this money now, maybe it does come off the platform, right? Maybe people say, I'm obviously not going to leave my cash there. Now, where does that go? Effectively, it has the effect almost of like a stimulus check, because that was a great, accelerator for markets. Equities is obviously crypto. So my question really is, where does that money go now? Does it go back into the crypto ecosystem? Who's the beneficiary? Is it a PayPal? Is it an FTX? We've always looked at crypto as like three camps. You have the aficionados, the people like us that are in the space. We love it. We believe in the technology. We're probably always going to trade, invest, sleep, drink, eat the space. Then you have the people in the middle who are crypto curious, who want to learn more, put some money in. And then you have the people like, Mr. Buffett, who call it rat poison, right? So now these people are getting their cash back. What bucket do they go to now? Do they become even more loyal with a different firm? Do they go to the rat poison bucket? Be interesting to see what the effects of this are. And then also, the language that they use is that for sale, right? So what does this look going forward? I know people love the Voyager app. It's a great interface. What does that mean if the company is sold, right? Is it the same tech? Does it become now by a bigger company, and do they create their own tech? So a lot of still unanswered questions, but yeah, I'm looking to see what this does to the industry, right? Because this may actually be a nice tailwind for the markets. Now you have people taking cash, and they may want to buy BTC, ETH, some altcoins that could drive prices obviously up forward. So, but a lot.
I got to be honest with you, it's the UI that's always impressed me the most. I've multiple accounts at centralized exchanges. I've been using Coinbase the most. I still can't stand the damn app, but it's what we got to do. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, Nick, throw some thoughts into here.
I mean, I think it's a good sign. I definitely think it's unfortunate to anyone who, has to read the fine print and see that, it's only USD instead of USDC. As I know, I am a person who is, for more or less, has his life in stables across many different platforms and wallets and things like that. So I'm not a typical USD holder, but for those that are, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. So yeah, I mean, better than nothing. And I do know that people are probably smarter than I when it comes to carrying cash as opposed to crypto on the platform. So I don't know if this is market impacting news, but I do, in terms of empathy and understanding and having been dealing with this for, what is it, over a month now, I mean, the fact I didn't expect this to happen this soon. So the fact that it is, I'm ecstatic for our team as well as the Voyager team and every single customer. So it's clearly things are happening better than freaking Celsius. So
that's a dumpster fire in its own right. One of the things. Okay, so here we have the cash coming. We have a couple of people in the comments who do have cash, so there's going to be, I would assume, a decent chunk of people with cash in their accounts. How many of them stay? How many of them stay in crypto? How many of them? Most of Voyager's customers are customers that have been acquired in the last year and a half, with a lot of them being just over a year old. This was their first touch into crypto. How many of them stay? Or are they going to all? I don't think they're all going to go. I think you're going to have people that have just been crapped on by the experience and remove themselves. Depending on how much cash is in the accounts that stay, it could be a nice little, it's not going to move markets, but it could be a nice boost to kind of throw capital back into the markets for sure. I think it's a positive sentiment towards the market. This is a precedent-setting case. So it is going to define a lot of decision-making on other bankruptcies that move forward. And trust me, folks, there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies that happen over the course of the history of crypto. So, if we say one thing,
Alex, like a lot of the tweets from people out there did mention, that they were using it because of the earn aspect, right? The interest, the USDC, right? So, to your point, yeah, maybe this money doesn't go into altcoins. Maybe it goes to another interest-bearing platform or instrument in this space, right? And that's still to be determined. Obviously, I think like on Coinbase, I guess you can get 4% maybe on your USDC there. So would people find 4% attractive?
Well, they have to. That's the reality, right? So that's I don't want to call it the new reality. That's just the way always reality was. People are going to have to settle for lower interest rates, lower earns. That's fine. As people, stay in crypto longer and educate themselves, they'll find various DeFi projects that could sustain, some more yield and whatnot. But the value proposition is going to be that we're going to outperform the traditional asset classes over the long term. Okay, that's what's going to happen.
We've said it before. Greed's going to return, and I guarantee you, anyone who has the desire to make a quick buck or to invest or play the market casino, they'll be back. They may not take as much risk, but it'll always be back.
Let me tell you something. If we go by the historics in crypto that the three of us have been through, I will tell you, folks, your greed gene will rise to the top every 2 to 3 years, and you'll experience 2021 every 2 to 3 years as long as we keep repeating history in crypto. So the one thing crypto likes to do to you is it likes to anger you when it causes you losses. It then puts you asleep as it slips sideways, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up with a jolt of greed, and you do that. It's the roaring 30s again, or the roaring 20s again, for 8 to 12 months, and then you go into the cycle all over again. The whole point is to make sure you have dry powder whenever these cycles happen. Okay, so also what was presented was a case timeline for restructuring. Now, what we did learn was that there was a lot of bids that came out, and I'm also just want to point out, we're reiterating stuff that people like Pat Ackerman or DJ Crypto or Retro Lenny or any of the other people that are following along with Voyager have already been put out. Our goal is just to make sure nobody's missed anything or any of those touch points. So there's there's a handful of bids that are higher than Alameda's and FTX's. So that's good news. It looks like Sam was put into his place a little on his publicity stunt.
Which I wanted to touch on that for a second too, because he came out with that tweet and he's got the the quote unquote effective altruism article from a while back, and it's like, okay, like technically at the end of the day, all it would have done is just given people access to their money sooner, and it would have hurt everything else in the long run. And that doesn't even mean everybody would have gotten back access to the full amount anyway. So, and the fact that there was no mention of competing bids, which I think was intelligent on the side of Voyager by not even getting into the fight, just letting him do his thing, knowing that the information is going to come out later on. The fact that there was other better offers, I mean, it completely wipes any of his, his statement, his outlook, his opinion, whatever you want to call it, like that thread that he wrote wipes the slate clean with it. I think we can talk about this maybe on another one, but I think people are starting to see the light on SBF.
Yeah, I will say, I think that the offer deadline for the SBF offer was the 28th of July. I can probably say with full confidence that there is no way, if that was accepted, the deal would have been consummated and you would have had access to your USD by August 11th. That I will say. The amount of ODD that would have had to go into all the paperwork would have made this go way through the month of August. So I'm really happy that the court allowed the USD to clear up before any deal was to be made. Now, if we look at the chart, we do have the final bid deadline set for the end of August. Now it says auction, if any. That would be if there's competing offers that are the same price. Or also that also means if nobody showed up to the table, but people have. Sale objective deadline, a sale hearing, that'll be with the court. I believe that suitors need to be approved both by the unsecured creditors committee and the judge themselves. We got to make sure that bidders are qualified. There's a few bidders that have come forward. I just don't think are qualified to take over a company with a dollar amount of this size. So, Sam Bankman-Fried, you guys know I'm listening, right? I like that. You see that in the chat? There's a fake Sam.
That's awesome.
So I think there's a few unqualified bidders that are in the process, and they'll get weeded out. Disclosure statement objective deadline for the 9th. Disclosure statement hearing on the 16th. I'm not sure exactly what that is in bankruptcy terms. Solicitation deadline on the 26th September, meaning that the company will no longer be actively marketed. Voting deadline on the October 24th. Confirmation hearing on the 31st. And the confirmation hearing on the 31st is going to be basically looking to wrap up the broad strokes of an acquisition, I believe, and then Q1 2023 effective date. So basically, this whole thing will go from a bankruptcy filing in the beginning of July all the way to a finalized transition to acquisition in Q1 2023. It's actually quite believably quick, particularly this USD. When is everybody going to get their crypto? The crypto is going to follow the process of bankruptcy court. So it could be a little while, and obviously don't know how much. K-Swiss 702. Do you guys believe in Ehrlich to lead Voyager going forward, or should the head coach be replaced because of what happened under his watch? Now, that's a great question. And I think there's going to be three alike opinions here, or three different opinions here. I'll start with myself and put it out on the line. Is that I do not believe that Steve Ehrlich will continue as the steward of this ship post-acquisition. The period of Q4 this year will be a transition period running into Q1, and that the new company will take over operations and move forward. Doug, Nick, your thoughts?
I'm just laughing at Sam Bankman-Fried in the comments. I'm sorry.
Sam Bankman-Fried is trolling us.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Sam, please don't take all my money and have Biden throw me in jail.
Okay, the last comment is the best.
Yeah. That's funny. As for leadership, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, clearly we understand where the fault was, but no fault is, every decision that gets made ends, the buck stops with the CEO. So he might not have made the decision. Maybe he wasn't even privy to the conversation. I would be shocked if he wasn't. But at the end of the day, no matter what, leadership failures, are exactly what they are. And, it's it's on you as the CEO, as the executive, as any C-suite person, to understand what the heck is going on in your financials and to handle that correctly. So although I would assume that his intent was never for this to happen, would assume he's a very smart individual and he's committed to the cause, and he's obviously working double time to make sure that all of this is rectified and people receive, the max benefits of whatever's in their wallets. At the end of the day, mistakes were made and we're in the situation that we were, and it could be argued that we might not have been if there was a different leader there. And that's kind of the hypothetical that you can never get over when you're talking about leadership regime changes is, if this person wasn't here, would this have happened or would something different have happened? And that's really the question that gets asked. And unfortunately, the best way to make a decision that affects the entirety of the organization is that helm, that star on the Christmas tree. So I wouldn't be shocked if he did get replaced, but I'm also not expecting that to happen immediately. And I would assume that that's going to be near the tail end of this entire debacle when it's figured out how they will continue to do business, as I know it can be very different for each company depending on the deals that are made, the debtors that are there, and the creditors as well. So I think we're going to still hear more of this story, but it would be surprising if when the dust is settled, if Voyager continues on, that Steve is still the CEO.
I think it was Lucas Bradley a couple of weeks ago in the chat said SBF is FTX and FTX is SBF, and kind of the same thing here with Voyager, right? Steve was Voyager, Voyager was Steve. He obviously was doing a lot promotions with the Mavericks, and so he was the face of the organization, very much similar to Steve Jobs of Apple, right? Apple was Steve Jobs and Steve Jobs was Apple. But now you look at Apple, I don't really, and maybe a lot of people don't equate Apple with Tim Cook. He's the guy that runs it, but he's not Steve Jobs, right?
So I think Tim Apple, Doug, come on, get his name right. It's Tim Apple.
Sorry, I know. But I think the point I'm making is that
you think anybody would miss me if I left Trade the Chain, or they get over it after the weekend?
So Apple has moved forward, and one could say in actually even better directions, right under Tim Cook's tutelage or whatever you want to call it, or running the ship. So I think Voyager moves forward, but it's a different, head coach or whatever that person said. But it will go forward. It's like McDonald's, right? It's no longer Ray Kroc's company, and that hasn't been like that in 40 years, right? So the ship will move forward, but it's going to be a different phase, and that's going to be helpful for them for brand, restoring confidence in their brand, obviously.
Well, here's an interesting question too. Well, first of all, K-Swift, thank you very much appreciated. And I was going to get to your last question. 60 to 70% back based on potential offers. I can't really speculate. I can't tell you officially what I think, but I think as we sit around in bars and drink our scotch and wine, we do tell ourselves that realistically in our heads, we're expecting between 60 and 70%. That number range is a practical range. Does that make me happy? No. Does it make me pissed? Yeah, I want 100%. Everybody should get 100%. But in real life, we're going to get probably, I would say, between 60 and 70% back.
Well, we still don't know though about the VGX token itself. So again, those are other coins. But VGX, again, if it's taken over and there's no utility for that, whoever, that may not be anything.
Yeah, I had I had some conversations with some people about the VGX token, and the different scenarios that might be something for a different, maybe that's for one of our spaces or something that we do next week. By the way, we do spaces on Tuesdays and Thursdays, folks, from 4:30 to 5:30 in the evening Eastern time. We did our first one yesterday, and it was good until it wasn't.
No, well, it was good. It was good until there was a Twitter glitch, but we tested a few theories and seemed to have figured it out. So we're not expecting any issues.
I think
further.
we can't. I think we can't let Ryan on anymore. I think
No,
every time Ryan popped on, it crashed.
Yep.
But yeah, I do expect 60 to 70% back on assets. That would be the realistic outcome based on the hole that's left in the balance sheet. There is that variable with the VGX token. There's also the huge variable, which I'd love to address on Twitter Spaces next week, which is where does VGX go in the course of acquisition, right? And we don't know who those suitors are. We probably can assume that 90% of them have no need for a native loyalty token at this point, particularly if there's any TradFi banks that are looking to win the auction. So I was talking to a couple of people about this, and this question came up from a NASCAR driver who we all know and love, and it has to do with, does Voyager moving forward continue with the brand, or does it rebrand? And I actually have a pretty strong opinion on this, but folks, does it stay Voyager, or does it change its name and go to a different brand?
I mean, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
No, we're speaking hypothetically, man. You don't need a beer to do this.
Well, and I'm not saying you need a beer, but it's like, I mean, that's like the least of the worries, right? It's like,
well, it depends on whether
it's like the bank's telling you can't take your money out, and you're like, well, will the bank have a new name tomorrow?
Well, how about this?
I need my money.
If this was JP Morgan Chase in Q1 2023, would you continue doing business with JP Morgan Chase? Maybe, maybe not. Would you continue doing business if they changed their name to Trustworthy Bank?
JP Morgan's, I mean, I think apples to oranges, but I think like
the business
brand. I know. But I mean, I'm giving my honest opinion, I personally think that these may be the wrong questions to be asking. And I want people to continue. I don't want people to go down the wrong rabbit hole and start discussions and conversations and arguments, as I know can happen when we're all in a contentious environment. Like, I feel like, one foot in front of the other. At the end of the day, if I had to answer the question, no. I don't think like other companies that have gone bankrupt, they have years of brand history. Voyager's been around 24 months. So like Toys R Us, like they were trying to battle back. Radio Shack, Hertz.
Whoa. Stop with the Radio Shack.
Yeah, but hey, because don't go on their Twitter if you're at work, by the way. But there's a reason to keep that brand, is because that brand power just has been around so long. Like, it, you hear it, you're like, okay, even though they went bankrupt, like, I still know Radio Shack and I get good vibes. I don't think anyone at the end of the day in 6 months from now is going to be like, oh, I hear Voyager and I get warm and fuzzies. And so I think that's when you talk about brand power and the psychological aspect of the attractiveness. I don't think that the name Voyager or any of that branding associated is going to have a positive connotation. And if you are doing your marketing, your brand building, your customer feedback, in the beginning stages before, fully launching, I would assume they'd gather the same feedback, but I could be wrong.
I would just use a real world example. First Union was the bigger bank. They bought Wachovia, which had a tremendous reputation in the South.
Which got bought by Wells, right?
And First Union was a dumpster fire in terms of customer service. They actually had their name on Giant Stadium back in the day, and they took the Wachovia name. And since then, everybody's totally forgot about First Union, right? So it's worked in that example.
That's funny you mentioned that. For some reason, I was thinking about Wachovia in my head yesterday because that's who my family banked with before they got bought by Wells Fargo back in the day. And for some reason, it just like randomly popped in my head, and I was reminiscing on the Wachovia brand. And so that's very funny.
It's like Xfinity, right? People like Comcast was awful, and it's like, oh yeah, now I love Xfinity. It's the same company.
It's the same thing. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, no, people, you mentioned Comcast, and people literally start, like white knuckling. Like it's like just horror stories of being on support for hours.
Oh God. One of the things, just want to go to the chats real quick. 60-70% of the tokens, and is that current day or day we were locked out? I want Cleveland. I suspect that that's going to be current day because you're referring to the snapshot, which was offered by Sam Bankman-Fried. There's no reason for a snapshot in this case. Whenever the tokens by the court are available to go back to people, it'll be whatever the market is on that given day. You're playing the market right now. You just have no access to them. So it'll be fluid with the market. Patrick, watches us almost every day. Thank you for being here. 60-70% for Celsius. I can't say, man. One, never been a Celsius customer. Two, Doug used the word dumpster fire earlier. This is not the same. We're not talking about the same game here. I think there's a little difference in what's going on with Celsius than what's going on with Voyager. So we'll see. And I apologize to anybody about that, but Crypto Man, you're always late. We still appreciate you. Let's see what else.
I wanted to mention one thing, not with Voyager, Alex, but it's important just to throw this out. Yesterday, the Bank of England, not what they did, but what they said, biggest interest rate increase in 27 years. What was fascinating was that they were expecting inflation to peak in October at 13%, hashtag awesome. But they don't see it getting down to the 2% mandate, which our Fed has, until 2025. That's 2.5 years from now. So I think it's really important for people, not trying to be a Debbie Downer going into the weekend, but price stability is what the Fed keeps talking about. That doesn't mean prices are going lower, right? They're just not going up. The rate of change, the delta is not increasing, right? So I think people, unfortunately, have to get used to higher prices. And if you're in England, I mean, basically get used to it for the next 2.5 years. Like, like we mentioned, the pizza at the local place, it ain't going back down $3 anytime soon. So
two things. Our inflation is certainly 13.7% as well, or something close. We just have very intelligent, cough, extremely stupid ways of massaging inflation data so that it doesn't seem as bad as it actually is. But if you actually go into urban inflation, it's been double digit for quite some time. So the other part is in relation to the Bank of England and things like that. I mean, 0.5% raise, and it was the highest in 27 years. They've had rates like extremely low. The Eurozone, I don't understand how their leadership even is functioning at this point. But yeah, I mean, in terms of inflation in that metric, we discussed this, I think maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. It was whatever day that you weren't on. I think you were busy with whatever was going on, but we discussed, I think if CPI was 0 for every single month until the end of the year, we'd still have between 5 to 7% inflation. So, I mean, and that's if CPI comes in at 0, and that ain't happening. So that's why I've been beating this drum. Like, anyone who thinks that that the bottom is in, that the Fed is done, that pivot is coming, I just don't see any perspective that the market is going to be bullish in 6 months. And I'm beginning to hear more of a beating drum that rate hikes will continue into 2023 when we were telegraphed, about a month ago, that they were going to stop at the end of 2022. So if they continue into 2023, they're not going to pull back in 2023. They're going to pull back in 2024, which is later than the predicted date, which means that the market is going to face more turmoil. So once you start lining all this up, I mean, I hate to be this guy, but I was also the guy that was screaming from the mountaintops in January that COVID was a thing, and everybody was calling me, some sort of Asian sympathizer and all this nonsense. So like I was very adamant about Ethereum going down into the $1,000 area when it was above 3,000 too. Like I don't start screaming from the mountaintops adamantly about my outlook unless there's a lot of data to back it up, and I'm extremely confident in it. So not saying listen to me, I'm the end all be all, but just my analysis is born from the data. The data is not indicating to me that we are out of the weeds anytime soon, and there is money to be made in both directions of the market, as Alex and I are proving very much. So whether it goes up or down, there is opportunity abound as long as you predict the right movement. So, and that's why, we're trying to say this. I would much rather buy now and be 10x richer in 6 months. Trust me. But I can short now and be also 10x richer in 6 months as long as I follow my plan. So, that's how we treat the markets, and that's how we have to look at opportunity and direction.
I think we're getting fleeced, Nick, to be honest. Again, I think people think prices are going to drop and all, and we just don't realize what we're looking at right now.
No, well, because people are listening to whatever is in front of them. The market looks 12 months ahead, and the Fed is clearly BSing to make things seem that they're not, to make the market is not as painful. Like, I mean, just imagine how depressed and angry and upset the world would be if inflation was this rate and asset prices were 50% down across the board. If indexes were not down just 12% from peak. Just think about where we'd be at now, and of course private equity would have kicked Biden out of the White House yesterday had that occurred as well. So I think people just have to think about the perspective and the fact that there is never a superhero in a shiny cape coming to save you, and life is much more like The Boys than it is the Superman TV show. So.
Well, for personal greed's sake, I hope Nick's right. I hope the market keeps throwing up on itself and this thing's a dumpster fire well in next year. And the reason I say that is because I want all my crypto back from Voyager so I can start, buying the bargains. That's probably the biggest pain of this whole thing. So hopefully people get to do that with their USD that they get back. Guys, it's Friday. It's 2:50 in the afternoon where I am. I'm sick of looking at Doug's face. It's been all
air conditioning. I'm melting right now.
CPI is next week. Speaking of CPI, we also have PPI. We also have consumer sentiment. Next week will be a big one. That's why I was expecting on my daily show, a bit of some ranging to continue. But I would expect, at best we range. More likely than not, we continue slightly lower. But the CPI next week is going to bring some fireworks. So look out for the Trade the Chain newsletter. And of course, if you're not in the Trade the Chain community, I'm sorry, because we have been giving alpha that has more or less come to fruition day in and day out, even hour by hour, every single morning. And if you're not catching my updates pre-market open, then you're probably missing out on some fantastic trades. So.
That is true. First of all, the newsletter and our research and commentary is free. So please head over to tradethechain.com and sign up for the newsletter. It's absolutely free, and you'll get a bunch of stuff into your inbox. Two is I'm still freaking even on this ETH long that you're shorting. And I'm playing this out, man. Somebody's gonna lose this game of chicken. But
I'll just I'll point everyone to the Solana chart. If Solana starts not breaking lower, then we have a problem. Solana is whenever risk is acting really wonky, Solana is my little canary in the coal mine. It always leads Bitcoin and Ethereum by a couple minutes. So that's my funky little indicator. I'm also short Solana, so
that's like the third time this week you've been short Solana.
Yeah, Solana and ETC have been my high beta trades compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, because I typically trade those because of the high liquidity on Dydex, but I also like to punt a smaller leverage trade just to capture that high beta. Beta meaning its volatility is greater than a benchmark Bitcoin in this example. And so Ethereum Classic has a high beta compared to Ethereum, which has a high beta compared to Bitcoin, and Solana is generally a high beta compared to Bitcoin, and is typically a high liquidity option on Dydex as well. So my magic indicators are liquidity and high beta. So that's why I like to trade.
All right, very cool. Follow us on Twitter. Follow all of us. The Trade the Chain, Sync Alexia, Alex Mascioli, Nick Mancini, and Doug, who goes by DD Bluehen.
Well, Nick now is Nick Stradamus.
I'm Nick Cini, but I may be Nick
Stradamus. I like that.
I kind of like Nick Stradamus.
And special thank you for Sam Beckman-Fried for joining us today in the chats. We really
Sam,
appreciate
if you want to come on the show, please do.
Anyway, guys, folks, we appreciate you all. We thank you all. We love you all. Hang on to your handlebars going into this weekend. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday, both on Nick's Daily Show and my channel as well. So take it easy, guys.